You're going to have a rookie quarterback coming out of a shortened off season, a non-existent off season. To be frank, I mean, with you can have all the Zoom meetings you want and the FaceTime sessions you want, but as you know, you need to get your O-line in sync with your quarterback. And it's not like that O-line, to me, has a plethora of veteran leadership, unless I'm mistaken. How do you see that coming together from a scheme standpoint? And if you are a veteran offensive lineman in that room, how can you help a young quarterback beyond just blocking people and keeping people off
I think communication is going to be a big thing. As you know, O lineman, it's all about communication. I think it's going to be a total team effort of communication because you're right. I mean, it's tough enough when they've been in that system, OTAs camp, and it's tough enough for a rookie, player, let alone a quarterback coming in and really making adjustments. So I think it's going to be, some of the veterans stepping up and helping out. And, we got some young linemen too. I mean, you're looking at Jonah Williams, actually going to be a rookie. Michael Jackson, the left guard, is in his second year. You have a couple other veterans on the line, but it's going to be a matter of, like you said, not only blocking and pass blocking, run blocking, but also the communication. I think the encouragement and just knowing that you're in his camp. I mean, having confidence in him from the first day, I think that's huge.
Yeah, and this is one of those things. I mean, as you look at it, and I've referenced this a few times, in the last 5 years, you look at first-round quarterbacks selected, and there's a reason, obviously, this stat doesn't exist in a vacuum, but 90% of them, their coaches that select them deal with the terrible fate of being fired a year later. I mean, like in the last 5 years, if you run down the list, there are very few and far between that have gotten their quarterback and lived to see his progression, even if it turned out all right. How do you look at the leash that Coach Taylor's on?
You know what? I think this organization as a whole with coaches, give them some time. I think Coach Taylor will have some time to bring his guy along. He plays, he played quarterback. He's been offensive mind. So I don't think it's going to be like a one or two and out. I think he's going to have some pretty good time to bring his guys in, which he's already started to do, as I mentioned earlier, with free agent on the defensive side, and then bringing some guys. So I think he's going to have a good period of time before the heat is felt by Coach Taylor.
Yeah. What do you see when you watch Joe Burrow? I mean, beyond the unknown, which is we don't know much about him outside this past year, which was spectacular. There's the Joe Brady question mark. There's an arm strength thing some people talk about. They talked about his hands. Is there anything you worry about with him, or are you as enamored with him as everybody else is?
Well, first of all, the last point was the hands. I mean, Dan Marino's hands were kind of small when he came out too. So
he was pretty good throwing a football, didn't he?
That was one of the knocks on him, was that his hands weren't very big. So I wouldn't mind having Dan Marino for 13 to 15 years. The thing, and I've watched Joe the entire year, not knowing, a whole lot about him. Actually, I just watched game 2 last week when they played the Texas in week 2, and he threw for like 471. I watched him all year, not to mention that he played better. The bigger the game got, the better he played. And, the arm strength has been a question, and I've seen him put the ball in some air. You have to have some arm strength to do that. But I think, and one of the guys, I'm not going to compare him to this guy, but the guy that I went 0 for in college and pros was Joe Montana. And the guy, I wouldn't say had the strongest arm, but his anticipation. There's times where Joe Burrow throws the football and the wide receiver still has 1 or 2 steps as he's breaking out of his cut, and the ball's right there. So I think the smarts, the anticipation, knowing if you're going to your number 1 or 2 guys and they're not open, bang, you get right away. You go to that third guy and you know exactly where he is. And to me, that's what's been impressive. And then his pocket awareness, the way he moves around in the pocket. And of course, now as you're getting close to the draft, you see more and more highlights. But you see a lot of guys that are moving around the pocket and they just have one hand on the ball, so it's very easy, for great pass rushers like you to knock it out. Moves around, he's got both hands on the football until he steps and throws. So there's a lot of things and I'm not an expert at the quarterback position, but that has impressed me beyond him, winning the Heisman and winning the national championship. But I love to watch how guys react with teammates, the camaraderie, the chemistry. And that is the thing that I've been impressed with Joe Burrow.
You're absolutely right. A couple things here. And one, I think he's got it between the ears as much as anybody. As a player watching him, it's as players, it's easy to tell. For us, it's easier to tell who's really got it. And I do feel like he has it, unless he has me fooled. He seems like he's got ice running through his veins. And the point you made about celebrating with your teammates, how you interact with your teammates. I always say this: if you want to know about a guy and what kind of teammate he is, listen to what his teammates say or don't say about him. They're generally not going to trash him. You'll know if they don't like him by the quote, if you know what you're looking for. All his teammates seem to love him, and the way he moves in the pocket. That's the other thing you mentioned. That was the first thing that stood out to me. He's so strong. It's like his hips, they swivel perfectly. His vision's good. His feet are always active. There's trash everywhere around him. And you mentioned it at the end of the year. I think the first 6-7 games, he's beaten up on a bunch of bad defenses. But when it really got rolling, he got better and better. So I feel good about him.
That was the impressive thing, and it didn't seem to be too big for him.
Yeah.
The leadership, the camaraderie, and I might need to be stand corrected, but I thought I read something or heard that even when he was the backup at Ohio State, his teammates and those around him were talking about his leadership qualities. I mean, usually you hear that about guys that are starting and are tearing it up. When you hear that about a backup, and then you continue to hear that when he went down to Baton Rouge. And I've not been around him, but I've talked to a couple guys that are covering the game that were at the combine. They did not interact with him directly, but they were in a meeting when he walked in. And then they said he just commanded the attention. And it was like the guy was not a senior coming into the draft when he walked in the room.
I wanted to ask you about A.J. Green. Where do you think he is physically? Where do you think he is mentally? I know it's trying, man, playing on bad football teams for a long time. I can certainly identify with him. And I feel like if any guy deserves to win, it's him. But I got a sense over the last couple of years that maybe he had almost had enough.
Well, it's interesting because to your comment, I think there's a perception that this team has been bad for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Dalton came here his first 5 or 6 years. They won 10-plus games every year.
Right.
And they won playoffs. But as you know, your credibility or you're judged on by winning playoff games. So it's been the last couple of years. I would imagine physically, A.J. Green is in pretty good shape. He got hurt early in the season, so he had the entire year, and he's had, since then to work. So I would imagine he's pretty healthy. Mentally, I think that's another story. Hopefully he gets to a point where his mental capacity is right where he is physically, because we need him, and he is a stud. I mean, he is a player that a rookie quarterback needs, and we have Tyler Boyd on the other side. We got Joe Mixon at running back. So to have a healthy and a mentally healthy A.J. Green would be a big, big boost for a rookie like Joe Burrow coming in.